Welcome to Cardinal Corner, a podcast created by Cardinal Home Center. I'm your host, Maggie Glass. For the second episode in our paint series, we're talking about when to prime and when to paint. I'm joined again with paint expert Michael Freeman. You're pretty much a regular on the show at this point.
I know, right? We keep doing these. Start calling us influencers.
I think for many, there's an urge to jump right in and start painting. Is this a good or bad idea?
Generally, as far as just jumping in and painting stuff, that's a bad idea. Definitely have some questions you need to answer about your particular job before you just grab a bucket of paint and start slapping. Otherwise, you're going to be doing it again, and you're going to be creating a lot more work for you. So, yeah.
What are the differences between oil and latex primer?
Okay. The difference between oil and latex primer, other than obviously the general makeup of them, is that oil base is a better sealer and a better stain blocker, and it soaks in better to whatever surface that you're doing. It does stink, generally, compared to a latex primer. It usually takes longer to dry, and you have to use paint thinner to clean it up, as opposed to just, if you're cleaning your brush out or your tools, using just warm soapy water, with the latex. Mm-hmm. With oil base, you do want to use a natural bristle brush, as opposed to most brushes you find in a paint store, nylon polyester blends, which work great with latex. And you can use it in an oil base, but you're kind of shot after that. Whereas the oil base, you kind of want to use that natural bristle brush. It does a lot better with that.
When should I use a primer?
You should use a primer anytime you've got like raw sheetrock, right? So like if it's a brand new home or you're adding it in addition to your house and it's bare drywall, prime it. If you've got any kind of stains like water damage, nicotine stains, maybe you've got marks from pens or crayons, stuff like that, you want to prime it. And then if you're doing bare wood, it's recommended that you prime it, especially if it has knots in it. And then if you're doing a significant color change, like if you're going from a vibrant yellow on the wall and you're trying to tone it down to like a subtle off-white, or if you're going from an off-white and trying to cover it with a really, deep red or green color on the wall. Anytime you're doing a really drastic color change, unless you want to spend the extra money on like your higher end products, mm-hmm. you can get a tinted primer. It's generally cheaper than getting the paint. Put a coat of that up, and then you can go over with your 2 coats of your top coat and get that nice color change for you.
What are the benefits of using primer?
Using primer helps you down the road mainly. For instance, when I first kind of really was getting started, a representative for a coverings company told me something that I'll never forget. He said, your preparation leads directly into your performance. All right, so it's just like a band, right? If you're in a music band and you just pick up a random instrument and you decide, I'm going to play this, it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, probably not.
Not going to be pretty. So think of it that way. If you don't prepare properly, your end result's not going to be that great. If you don't prime when that's necessary. So for instance, if you've got a ceiling and it's had water damage, you fix the water, the problem, but now you've got that water damage up there. If you just paint over it, it's going to bleed through. Uh-huh. So now you're going to have to deal with it again.
Yeah.
If you paint something and it's, say, raw sheetrock, sheetrock's going to soak up a lot of your paint. Paint generally costs a lot more than your primer. You're going to be using a lot of paint. You're going to be spending a lot of money. So the biggest thing is that if you're using primer the first time when necessary, you're saving yourself money.
Okay.
That's the biggest thing, because it seals up the surface, which paint does not. Paint is more like armor. It sits on top. It doesn't actually soak in and seal it.
Right.
And the other thing is that it blocks stains from bleeding through. Paint does not do that. So it's really important. If you've got, like I said, water stains, nicotine stains, crayon, whatever, if it's on the wall, you need to prime over it before you paint it.
I know not all primers are the same. Are there other considerations depending on which room I'm painting?
There are. For instance, if you've got a room where you've got bare drywall and that room's going to be a bathroom or a high humidity room, they make vapor barriers that you can put in to help protect that drywall from that excess moisture, thereby saving you not only money as far as down the future with issues of mold and mildew, time too. Mm-hmm. And as the saying goes, time is money. And then a lot of times though, You can use a good all-purpose primer for most of your jobs, though. So, for instance, if you're trying to prime shelves, if you're trying to prime some patches in your drywall, and you're trying to maybe prime a handrail, right? Those three all could be covered under Fresh Start multi-purpose primer. All three of those jobs, you could use that and it would do a fine job.
How do primers differ with the material you are painting?
Okay, that's a good question. The primer, as far as whether it's an oil base or a water base primer, that's going to be your biggest difference based off of what you're painting. So for instance, if you're painting metal, you actually really want to know what kind of metal that is before you prime it. So for instance, if it's turn metal, like steel, tin, wrought iron, you're going to want to use an oil-based primer.
Okay.
Because that actually will stick. If you use latex, you're not going to have a good time. If it's galvanized steel or if it's aluminum, then believe it or not, you actually want to use latex because especially with galvanized steel, it's got a zinc coating. And if you put oil base on that, it'll actually have a chemical reaction.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, it gets really ugly. So that's where you would want to use a latex because it's not going to have that. It's going to stick to it and it'll be great. Wood, on the other hand, you can technically use both. The biggest thing I try to tell people about, though, with that is that if you have wood and it's bare and you're going to prime it, you can use latex, but latex will swell the wood grain, so it's going to make it look rough, and you'll have to go back and sand it smooth. If you don't mind that extra work, then the other thing to watch out for is if that wood has knots. If it has knots that can bleed, use the oil base. You'll save yourself time, because if you use latex, there's a good possibility you'll have to go back and spot prime with the oil base anyway.
Okay.
Oil base soaks in, seals it up nice and tight. Is it the funnest thing to use? No. Is it the best thing to use on bare wood? Absolutely.
Okay. When do I not have to use a primer?
Actually, a good example of not needing to use primer is if you've got a previously painted surface that's in good condition. So for instance, if you've just got a room in your house, it's in good condition, you don't have any stains or anything you're dealing with, you just want to change the color.
Yeah.
And it's not a drastic color change, you don't need primer. If you've got exterior wood that you're looking to like do a stain on, you don't necessarily need a primer because you actually want the wood to be able to soak up that stain. If you use a primer, it can prevent that. So a stain, especially like your translucent stains, you want those to be able to soak in. And in a solid stain even, you don't necessarily need a primer. It can just latch right onto that wood. You just need to make sure the wood's prepared.
What other questions do you get related to primer?
Yeah, we get all kinds of questions because there's all kinds of jobs. I would say the biggest questions we get is what they should do on their cabinetry because, you've got veneers, you've got stained cabinets, you've got previously painted cabinets. And our go-to for cabinets in general is Stix, S-T-I-X. If you're looking it up, it does exactly what that name says. It sticks to stuff, and it sticks good. We actually have a sample in our paint department of a piece of glass that we never scuffed up or anything. Painted it on there, you can't get it off unless you take it off with a knife. Yeah, so it's really good stuff. So if you've got a veneer or if you've got oil base paint on there or you're just not sure what's on there, Stix is really good. Just make sure it's clean and dull. Put it on there, it's on there. If you have, though, on the other hand, stain or bare wood, then generally we recommend an oil base because if it's stained, especially if it's got oil base stain on it, that can bleed through latex primers, which is the Stix is a water-based urethane primer, so it can bleed through that. But if you use an oil-based primer, it'll stop it. So that's one, and then of course, as I said before, anytime you've got bare wood, oil base is the way to go. Another one we get a lot of questions about is floors. Most wood floors, you can do both. Again, if it's available to you with time constraints, using oil base is better. And then for concrete floors, you actually don't hardly ever. Can't think of a single time in, 12 plus years of dealing with paint, I can't think of a single time we've needed primer on a concrete floor.
So don't get primer.
No, because concrete, say in your basement especially, it wicks up moisture.
Okay.
And so a lot of times you want that to be able to breathe, and if you put a primer on that, it's just going to bubble off.
Okay.
Because it's trying to seal it up, and that water will always win.
Okay.
So
All right. Thanks for tuning in today. Today's broadcast is designed to give you a general idea of your project. Please consult our team members to make recommendations for your specific needs. If you want to learn more about what we talked about, visit our website at cardinalcornerpodcast.com.